Hi, hello, I'm finally back. Sorry about last weekend, but we had some technical difficulties and therefore we could not do a video. I certainly hope that everybody had a nice, happy new year. And the other thing, obviously, is that I hope this year is going to be really good for everybody. Happy, healthy, being able to go places so we don't feel like we're sequestered. My story today is called Kaffee Stecker. When I was a little girl, one of the things that I really enjoyed doing is when my parents, meaning usually my mother or my grandmother, when they could come up with enough money, which was a rare occasion, maybe a couple of times a year, they would take me to a cafe, and I really liked that. It made me feel like a big girl. I got to get all dressed up, and my mother would always do this thing of taking part of my hair and braiding it and then putting it around on the top of my head and let the rest of the hair hang down. But this little crown on top of my head, she would put fabric, like little ribbons that she cut, and put it into the braid. And in one of the care packages that we had gotten, there had been these two little plastic butterflies. And when I first unpacked it with my mom, I couldn't figure out what that was. And she said, "Oh, this is great. It's for your hair." I'd never seen anything like it. So she would put these little butterflies on in my braid, and I really liked that. So this was an occasion where my French grandmother said, "I've saved up enough money, and on Sunday afternoon, I'm going to take you to Kaffee Stecker." Kaffee Stecker was, I think it started in 1908, and my favorite of the Kaffee Stecker cafes was the one that was right in the center of the city, across from City Hall. It was called the Ratskonditorei. Yes, I will spell that. And it was down in the cellar. You had to go down these few steps, and they were really old. I mean, they had sort of, had an indentation in the middle. And then you went down into this basement, which was just adorable. It was a tiny little cafe. I think it had like maybe 6 or 7 tables, and then of course the traditional huge glass case with all of these absolutely incredible little tarts and cakes, and everything always looks, some of you who have been in Europe, whether it's in Austria or France or Germany or Switzerland, will know that these cakes all look like a piece of art. They're just absolutely stunning. And this particular day, I had a really hard time that day in school. One of the boys that really disliked me came running up to me, and some of you who have been watching a lot of my videos, you will remember him. His name was Johann. He is the kid that knocked my piece of bread out of my hand and it fell down in the dirt. And he always threatened me with all sorts of things, like when I helped Rosemary and Angelica, he would always say, "You'll regret that." So I don't know what the dynamics were, but it was very unpleasant for a little girl to be picked on like that. And that particular Friday, he had looked for me in the schoolyard, and he said, "You know what? We know how stupid you are, because Aranka, that's not your real name. That name doesn't even exist. Your name is Anka, and that's a dog. So you're a dog." And then he went, "Woof, woof, woof, woof. Look, she's a dog." I did not want him to know how much that hurt me. So I didn't say anything, and I held my tears back. But on the way home, I started to cry. And when I came home, my grandmother was there, and she said, what's going on?" So I told her, and she said, "Well, first of all, I've saved up money. I'm taking you to Kaffee Stecker on Sunday. And second of all, you really need to ignore these children where you go to school. They don't like you because you're different, and they make fun of you, and that's okay. You don't have to be like everybody else. As a matter of fact, I'm proud of you that you're not. But I know at your age, you want to be like everybody else. You want to fit in. And she said, guess what? You'll never fit in. And the sooner you can learn that there's nothing wrong with being different, the better it's going to be for you. And just, he's ignorant. Just ignore him. You know, don't pay any attention. I know it's very, very hard for you to put up with that. But once you get older, we'll figure out how you can get out of this environment. And I thought, I wonder what she's talking about. Well, we all of you who have been watching a lot know that, yeah, I took that to heart. I ran away when I was 15. But anyway, so she said, I'm going to take you there on Sunday, and we're going to have a really nice time. When we left, I felt really pretty. My mother had sewn a skirt for me out of a piece of remnant fabric that we had picked out together that'd been on sale, and she made this little blouse. And we were, my grandmother and I, it took about close to an hour to get to this cafe because we had to pay on the ferry boat, but to get to this particular cafe, we could actually stay on the side of the river where we lived and walk all the way to the bridge. And let me just say this again, if some of you have watched a lot, that's the bridge that my dad jumped off and he got arrested. But then for us to walk to the bridge and go across, we didn't have to pay to get across the river on the ferry boat, and we would have never taken the streetcar anyway because that was just too much money. Since we could walk on that side of the river where we lived, that was actually good for us because it didn't cost us anything to get to the cafe. But that was a good like 45-minute or hour walk. But it was a beautiful day, and so it was pretty. And it's actually a pretty walk to get there. Once we got across the bridge, my grandmother said, okay, let's just walk straight to the restaurant now, because if we wait much longer, the cafe is just going to be really crowded, because that's a pastime in all of those countries, whether it's Germany or Austria or France, this afternoon cafe culture. So if you wait too long, of course, then there's no table. So when we got there, there was one table left, and it was actually when you started to go down, there was like this tiny little room, just big enough for one table and two chairs. And then the stairs continued on down, and that one was empty, and that was my favorite, because then you could still see people on the street, which is actually wasn't a street, it was the marketplace. So when we got there, one of the women that worked there, she said, oh, I remember you. You're that little girl with a fox. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I haven't been here in over a year. And she said, oh, you've grown so much. And she said, oh, wait, let me guess. I think I remember what you're going to have. You want Schneemuskuchen. I'll translate that later. I'll translate it now, but I'll tell you how to spell it. Actually, it's a Schneemustorte, which is a semi-frozen cake that they only make in the summertime. And there are big sheets of meringue that they bake in the oven. So when they're done, you know, they're all crunchy. They're not like the top on some kind of a meringue pie. This is actually baked. And then they layer it with whipped cream that they either put raspberries in, or strawberries, or gooseberries, or some kind of fruit. And it's just absolutely spectacularly delicious. But they serve it almost semi-frozen, so the whipped cream is a little bit frozen, and it's really, really good. So we had that, and I asked my grandmother whether that was something that we could make at home. And she said, yeah, you could ask your papa. When you make mayonnaise, you have all of the egg whites left over, and that cake, that's what it is. It's just sugar. Those of you who make meringues, you know, that's it. It's just sugar and egg white and sort of a pinch of salt. But I never actually made that while he was still alive. But years later, I decided that I should really make something like that. There were many, many years where I never went to Germany because I had, when I was 18 and I left, I had decided I would never go back there because of all of the stuff that had happened. Of course, later I got over it. I wasn't about to continue to feel that way. And I actually made it, and it was really good. One of the fabulous things that happened is that I had not been in Germany for almost 30 years. And when my mother moved back there to take care of her sister, I would go visit my mom. And so my mother and I would always go to Stecker, which was just wonderful because I had these great memories of my French grandmother, who was just this sweet person, and I just absolutely adored her. And so to be able to go back there with my mother so many years later was really lovely. So I do have some precious memories of my grandmother. And she was so, when we were, I'll just get back to her for a minute. When we were walking towards the cafe, one of the things she said to me, you know, she said, your Hungarian grandmother just talked to you about your name. It's very special. It's been in your family for a long, long time. So I thought, oh my God, those two talked. And now my French grandmother thinks that's true too. Because when I was little, I didn't think that that was really the truth. I did know it meant the golden one. And I believed that part, but I didn't believe that it had been in our family for hundreds of years. So I thought, oh my God, these two, they're in cahoots. That's a fine thing, of course. Later I found out that no, that was actually the truth. It had been in our family, and my grandmother said, you know, just remember what Grandma Kukula told you. It's a special name. This baby hundreds of years ago had a golden glow. So when these ignorant kids in your school say how stupid you are and how that name doesn't exist, that's just their ignorance. They've lived a very sheltered life. They don't know anything about any other culture. They've never heard that name, and so they don't know it exists, and they think that you're stupid. So you're not. Just ignore it. So I have a lot of fond memories of her, and whenever I now go to Bremen, every time I go there, I go to Stecker. They also have a second cafe, which is much, much, much larger. And let's get this one. It's in der Knochenhauer Straße. It will be spelled later. And I love to go there because that's very close to the hotel I stay at. And I go over there every morning for breakfast. And I think that's all I want to say about that for now. Otherwise, this video is going to be way too long. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.